The night sky over Veari Prime was no longer beautiful. It used to be. When Commander Lethar was a hatchling, he would climb the cliffs above his nesting city and gaze at the twin moons. The northern moon glowed pale silver, the southern a faint blue, and together they washed the world in soft light. To the Veari people, the moons were symbols of protection, one for wisdom, one for courage. Now those skies were filled with falling fire. Dominion fleets had arrived. Great black warships drifted through the upper atmosphere, blotting out the moons like wounds across the heavens. The ships shed fire as they descended, burning debris raining down, craters glowing in forests and farmland. Where those burning meteors fell, cities died. Lethar stood in the command chamber of the capital, his claws trembling as his eyes fixed on the comms beacon. The beacon pulsed weak light, endlessly sending the same message in dozens of languages, across bands so deep no one had used them in centuries. Whoever hears this, please, we are dying. The Dominion has come, we beg for aid. They had sent that call for help weeks ago. No answer had come. The Federation, with its endless councils and debates, had deemed Veari Prime strategically irrelevant. The Jari collectives had coldly turned away, muttering about their own border disputes. Even the Kasari priesthood, who claimed compassion was sacred, had closed their temples and refused to send so much as food. No one wanted to waste resources on a world doomed to the Dominion's grasp. Lethar gritted his teeth, staring at the floor. We are alone. The aides in the chamber lowered their heads in silence. Outside, the sounds of bombardment rattled the towers. And then, against all expectation, the beacon chirped. A voice crackled through the static, harsh, deep, and alien. This is the human vessel Tempest Dawn. Transmission received. We're en route. The chamber froze. Every Veari turned toward the console, disbelief etched across their faces. One aide whispered, horrified, "Humans, the Deathworlders." Lethar's spine stiffened. The word carried weight. He had heard stories of them, creatures from a planet of storms that shattered mountains, predators that hunted sapients, diseases that killed by the millions. Their world, Earth, had been classified a Category 9 Deathworld, a place so hostile that no sane species should have survived there. The Federation had called them reckless, dangerous, too violent and unpredictable to ever be trusted. And yet they had answered. The aides murmured nervously, fear rising. We cannot allow them here, they'll turn on us. Better the Dominion than humans. They are monsters, Commander. Lethar ignored them, his heart pounded. Whoever they were, whatever their reputation, humans had answered when no one else would. That alone mattered more than fear. Hours later, the sky split. The Tempest Dawn came screaming through the upper atmosphere, scarred and battered, but alive. It was no elegant warship like the Federation's cruisers. Its hull was a patchwork of welded plates, scorch marks, and ugly cannons jutting like broken teeth. Engines rattled and belched flame, sounding like a wounded beast, but they held. From its belly descended smaller craft. Armored dropships streaked fire across the clouds, slamming into the ash plains outside the burning city. The humans came. Lethar and his guard rushed to the battlements to witness. He had never seen such creatures before. They were tall, broad-shouldered, clad in mismatched armor that was dented and scarred. Helmets were marked with crude designs, skulls, snarling beasts, painted words in their harsh tongue. Their weapons were brutal, heavy machines meant for killing. But it was their eyes that froze Lethar. Cold, fierce, yet alive with fire, the eyes of predators, the eyes of survivors. At their head strode Captain Elias Ward. His face was weathered, his beard grayed, one arm replaced by a crude cybernetic graft. A scar ran across his jaw. His presence radiated danger. You called, Ward said, voice gravel and smoke. We're here. The Veari guard stiffened, some shrinking back. Behind him, the humans spread like wildfire. They set up turrets with frightening speed, dragged out wounded Veari from collapsing buildings, barked orders at one another with ruthless precision. Where the Dominion sought to kill, the humans sought to fight and to save. Lethar finally managed to speak. His throat was dry. Why would you help us? Ward's gaze locked on him. In those eyes, Lethar saw storms, battles, pain, and something else. Compassion. Because nobody else did. Before Lethar could respond, the night lit up. The Dominion had seen the landing. The first bombardment fell, plasma bolts carving craters across the plains. Dominion war drones descended, metallic beasts with glowing red eyes forming disciplined ranks. Their gunships hovered overhead, spewing fire into the streets. Ward turned to his soldiers. "Line up," he barked. "Show 'em how Deathworlders fight." The humans roared in unison, a sound so raw and primal that even the Dominion paused. Then they raised their weapons and charged. The battle for Vayari Prime had begun. Cliffhanger, the Dominion war machine descends with overwhelming force, and humanity's ragtag force, the Deathworlders, stand defiant. White heavy checkmark, that's part 1. Tilde 1, 401, 500 words with the full hook, build-up, and cliffhanger ending. Do you want me to continue with part 2 at the same level of expansion? 1, 401, 500 words, showing humanity's first brutal tactics against the Dominion. The first Dominion wave hit like a hammer. Plasma strikes carved the ash plains into bowls of glowing glass. Gunships prowled the low clouds, dragging hard light across the streets. War drones marched in tight squares, red optics steady, weapons rising and falling in a rhythm so precise it sounded like a drum. Captain Elias Ward did not flinch. He stood on a shattered balcony and watched the enemy come on, his one good hand tight on a field radio, his cybernetic fingers flexing and ticking. "Blue team," he said calm. "You see that line of drones anchoring the left flank? Melt it. Red team make those gunships nervous. They don't like getting kissed by rocks." "Kissed by rocks," a human voice crackled back with a laugh. "Roger that, Cap." Commander Lethar stood at Ward's side, ash settling into the soft fur between his spines. His people's banner, a pale blue strip marked with the twin moons, hung ragged from a broken mast above them. He swallowed and forced his voice steady. "Our defensive cadres can form a shield wall in the mid-street. We can hold a corridor for your retreat." Ward shook his head. "Don't build a wall," he said. "Build a maze." "A maze?" Ward's smile was quick and fierce. "They're trained to push straight, so we give them straight, then turn straight into sideways." He pointed down into the ruins. The humans were already at work. They didn't move like the orderly armies Lethar had seen on council broadcasts. They moved like pack hunters, fast and low, talking in short, sharp phrases and hand signs. They ripped doors off houses and set them on their sides to make funnels. They pushed shattered carts into choke points, but not to block the way, to create bends. They slung wire between lamp posts and spray-painted the wires bright yellow, as if daring the enemy to notice. They dragged broken statues into the streets, but stopped short of closing any path. "A maze," Lethar breathed. Ward pointed again. "We feed them corridors, and every corridor has 3 exits, one they can see, one that looks weak, and one that bites." He lifted the radio. "Green team, you're the bite. Post those surprises. Claymores facing in. No, not our claymores, too pretty for this party. Use the fuel lines." Lethar blinked. "Fuel lines." A human with a shaved head and a scar where one eye should be, Sergeant Mara Voss, jogged past carrying a coil of blue-striped pipe. "Found a broken feed from the heat grid," she said, breathless. "Old city burns methane in the cold months, right? We'll wake your winter early." Lethar stared, "But the system has been dead for cycles." "Dead doesn't mean empty," Voss grinned. "Ask my love life, sir, permission to gas the lane and light it when they stack up." Ward gave her a nod. "Do it, don't cook yourself." "Not my first bonfire." She winked her one eye and vanished into smoke. The first Dominion line reached the maze. They advanced with machine calm. Drones on the edges scanned for concealed weapons. The central column pushed straight. When they found the first gap, they poured into it. Their doctrine was clear: fill space, maintain pressure, crush resistance by volume. The space they filled was a narrow run between broken walls. The run took a dogleg left, then right, then widened in a way that made the drones spread to both sides. "Now," Ward murmured. On the rooftops, humans rolled rounded spheres, polished, heavy, ugly things, down slanted boards. The spheres bounced, cracked, and burst into clouds of glittering dust. Lethar flinched. "What is that?" "Ground glass," Ward said, "mixed with salt and sticky oil." The drones' intakes sucked the dust. Their cooling ports choked. Their forward optics fogged, the first ranks slowed. From behind ripped carts, 2 humans popped up with tubes on their shoulders and fired. The tubes belched smoke and metal. The shots weren't guided. They didn't need to be. They were fat, dumb rockets meant to smash walls on Ward's homeworld. Here they smashed drones. The central column staggered. The drones tried to withdraw and realign. The humans didn't let them. A line of Vayari, emboldened by the humans at their shoulders, rose from cover with their slender rifles. The weapons hissed, light spears striking into drone joints softened by heat and grit. Drones fell. The Vayari leaders shouted with wild joy. This was not the ceremonial, polished warfare of councils. This was an alley brawl, and they were winning pieces of it. Gunships snarled and dipped to rake the rooftops. "Red team," Ward said, "wake the sky." On signal, a human at the base of an old comms tower ripped a braided cable free and jammed it into a generator the size of a coffin. The generator howled. Charges the humans had nailed high on the tower's ribs fired in sequence. Lightning crawled up the metal like a living beast and leapt into the low clouds. The nearest gunship's shields danced and spit. Its stabilizers hiccuped. The craft lurched and clipped a roof edge, shearing off a wing. It spun into the street, skidding, hissing, rolling, crushing its own drones. Lethar stared at the tower, eyes wide. "You made the sky angry." Ward grunted. "Your planet does the heavy lifting." He pointed at the low clouds, still swollen with hot rain from the bombardment. "Water's a great friend until it is." A shout not human. Lethar's gaze snapped left. A Vayari child had climbed from a basement and stood in the open, stunned by the noise and light. A Dominion drone tracked the small body with lazy certainty. Its weapon warmed. Ward didn't think. He dropped from the balcony. His boots hit a cracked awning, then a wagon, then street stone. He ran full tilt, breath burning, old wounds flaring. The drone rotated toward him. Ward threw his whole body into the child. They tumbled behind a half wall as the drone fired. The blast tore the wall to chunks. Stone and dust rained. Ward rolled onto his back, shoving the child under his chest. His cybernetic arm met a piece of falling debris with a sound like an axe in wood. The arm held, his shoulder screamed. He drew his sidearm with his meat hand and fired twice. The drone twitched and fell. The child clung to his armor, eyes wide and wet, chest heaving. Two small fingers found the seam of his glove and squeezed. "It's all right," Ward rasped. "It's all right, kid." Lethar arrived with two Vayari soldiers. They formed a wall in front of Ward, firing down the street. One turned, confusion and awe on his face. Why did you?" "Because they were small," Ward said. He shoved himself up on his knees and grimaced as his shoulder refilled with fire. "Small folks don't owe the big folks for existing. Big folks owe the small folks for everything." He nodded at the child. "Get them under, keep them breathing." The soldier took the child gently. Lethar's throat tightened at the sight. Humans were monsters from a deathworld. Humans saved their children. A roar sudden and close. Heat washed the street. Sergeant Voss's voice whooped on the radio. Lanes lit. At the bend of the maze, pale blue flames rose in a low, steady wave. The methane feed the humans had tapped hissed from a half-century-old pipe. The Dominion drones, programmed to hold formation under heat and noise, did just that, until their own plastic-ceramic housings began to sag. The flame burned clean and almost invisible, but the heat was not. Optics cracked, joints jammed. Drones stumbled and fell in awkward heaps. Voss stepped through the shimmering air with a big, ugly hook on a pole and yanked melted drone carcasses into the hottest band, cackling. "Deathworld fire," she sang. "Hot kisses for cold hearts." "Voss," Ward snapped, half laughing despite himself. "Breathe with your face turned the right way." "Copy, boss." Across the district, the fight turned. The humans made ambushes out of laundry lines and stairwells, used fallen gravcars as springboards to leap onto servitors and pry their control brains loose with pry bars. They hurled homemade charges up into open gunship vents, where the charges bounced until they found something expensive. They threw rocks at optics. They shouted at each other with joy and ugly jokes while everything burned. The Vayari learned fast. They had always been lithe, quick, clever with their hands. Now they used those skills like knives. They set their own bright-painted wires in alleys. They climbed walls barefoot to fire from angles machines didn't expect. They watched where humans aimed, and they aimed there, too. Lethar moved from corner to corner, shouting orders, hauling wounded. He paused once to catch breath and found a human knelt in the open on a tarp, sleeves rolled, skin spattered with soot and blood. A medic. She had a patient's four-fingered hand in her gloved grip and a syringe between her teeth. "You can't be here," Lethar gasped. "It's not safe." The medic spat the syringe into her palm, slid it into a vein, and pushed. "I've got 4 safe places," she said briskly. "Behind me, under me, left hand, right hand. Everywhere else is your job, Commander." Lethar blinked. "What is your name?" "Dr. Tamsin Rays," she said. "We call me Doc or hey you. Hold pressure here for me, yeah? Your hands are made for this." She guided his claws to a wound on a Vayari thigh, firm and gentle. "Good, don't let go until I tell you, and breathe. In for 4, out for 6. Lethar obeyed, 4 in, 6 out. The patient's eyes eased. Rays worked fast, moving with a rhythm more like a dance than a procedure. When she was done, she touched brow to brow with the wounded Vayari, an old Vayari gesture of kinship. She must have learned it from someone. She did it right. The wounded soldier made a soft sound of wonder. Rays looked up at Lethar. "See," she said, "we can learn." Lethar found, to his shock, that he was smiling. "Doc," Ward's voice cut in. "We've got heat building in the west sector. Stay low." "Always," Rays replied, even though she did not move even a little. The first wave broke. Dominion drones pulled back in steady retreat, dragging the damaged and stepping over the destroyed. Gunships climbed to a safer height, their rakes turning wide and cautious. The street fell into a wild quiet, the sound that comes after gunfire where every breath feels too loud. The Vayari started to cheer. Ward didn't. "Don't," he warned low and flat. "They're testing, they don't fold this easy." He made himself look past the local fight and see the battle as a map in his head. The Dominion had probed the new pattern, learned the edges of the maze, tasted the fire and wire and rocks. Deathworld surprises stopped being surprises if you repeated them like ritual. The next wave would come with counters. It always did. Lethar read Ward's face. "What will they bring?" "Bigger teeth," Ward said. He tapped his radio again. "Blue team on me, red reload, green no more towers unless I say. Doc, take a drink of water even if you hate it." "Copy," Rays said cheerfully, taking a savage gulp from a dented canteen. A Vayari officer approached, chest heaving, eyes bright. "Captain Ward," she said, "my section is ready to follow your lead. We can hold your flanks." Ward gave her a quick nod. "What's your name?" "Civ Halden, sir." "Halden, find any garden hoses and irrigation lines that still carry pressure. I want water everywhere that isn't a fight. Flood low points. If your pipes still work, make the roads rivers." "Water for covers." "For steam," Ward's smile flashed. "Steam ruins optics, and if they switch to infrared, steam ruins that too. Plus, our doc likes clean hands." Civ bowed and sprinted away, calling orders. Moments later, voices rose from courtyards and valves turned with a chorus of groans. Pale water began to thread through gutters and cascade down stairwells. The streets started to shine. Vayari children, kept inside with firm hands, whispered at the noise and the wet and the strange, sudden hope that came with both. Ward flexed his arm and grimaced. Lethar noticed. "Your shoulder," he said softly. "Later," Ward said, "pain means I'm still here." "Humans wear pain like armor," Lethar murmured. Ward glanced at him. "We wear it because it doesn't care if we do, might as well make it useful." A low hum pulsed through the street. It vibrated Lethar's ribs, trash quivered on the cobbles. The hum grew deeper. The clouds above, already bruised from the generator's lick, glowed with the reflection of something big. Shadows crossed the moonlight. The Dominion was coming again. They did not send drones first. They sent machines built to break cities. They walked out of the haze like nightmares given joints. Tower tall, broad at the shoulders with sickle armor plates that shed rain like the backs of river beasts. Their heads were snouts of sloped metal, all weapon. Spine-mounted lances crackled and spat violet at the tip. When they stepped, panes shattered and stones skipped. A dozen, 2 dozen, more. Behind them crawled carrier tanks with side hatches yawning open, each hatch wide enough to spit out a platoon. "Warforms," Lethar whispered, the word barely air. "We have legends of them. I thought they were stories to frighten hatchlings." "Every story starts as somebody's day," Ward said. On rooftops and corners, human rifles lifted. The first shots sparked off the lead warform's chest like rain on a hot pan. The thing did not slow. It planted 4 great feet, ducked its head, and fired its spine lance. The bolt crawled down the length of the street and peeled the face off a block-long building. Stone walls slumped like wax. The sound rolled and rolled. Something like fear touched the humans. Lethar saw it in their shoulders, the way they leaned back and then made themselves lean forward again. He felt the same fear in his own legs. The warforms were wrong for streets. They were meant to walk across courage. Ward didn't waste a heartbeat. He spoke in a tone Lethar had already learned to love. Not soft, not harsh, simply true. "All teams," he said. "No hero shots. We go under and we go inside. You see the seams, that's where we live." He turned to Voss. "Get me the eggs." Voss grinned, wicked and fierce, and maybe a little scared. "Thunder eggs." "Thunder eggs," Ward said. "Bring enough to make the gods wake up angry." Voss sprinted toward a crate stenciled with a crude cartoon of a bird sitting on a bomb. She kicked the lid. Inside lay a row of squat cylinders, ugly even by human standards, each wrapped in layers of insulation and copper coils. Lethar pointed, throat tight. "What are those?" Ward's eye never left the marching warforms. "Things machines hate," he said. On cue, the lead warform lifted one enormous leg to crush a barricade of carts and statues. "Move," Ward shouted, and the humans did, a blur of bodies and purpose. The warforms stepped forward. The street shook, and Ward's people carried the thunder toward the giants. The street shuddered with each step of the Dominion warforms. Lethar had seen beasts before, the razorbeaks that stalked the salt flats, the sand leviathans that rolled in the southern dunes, but these were not beasts. They were titans built for only one purpose: war without compromise. Each one stood 6 stories tall. Their feet ended in plates that sank stone with every strike. Their heads were sloped snouts of weapons, eyes like searing plasma vents. Along their spines crackled lances of violet energy, lightning trapped in coils that hissed and spat across the rain-filled air. Every movement echoed with the metallic groan of inevitability. Around them crawled carrier tanks, their hatches yawning, spilling Dominion soldiers in perfect lines. The soldiers wore segmented armor and carried rifles that pulsed with alien light. They advanced in disciplined rhythm, step for step with the giants. The Veyari soldiers around Lethar felt the tremor of those steps in their chests. They faltered. Some dropped weapons. He saw in their eyes the same terror he felt, that this was hopeless, that the fight had ended before it began. But the humans didn't falter. Captain Ward stood in the rain, face lit by the glow of his cybernetic arm. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "All teams," he said into the radio. "Remember what I told you. Giants fall like anything else. They've just got farther to hit the dirt." Sergeant Voss came running, a crate strapped to her back. She dropped to one knee, ripped it open, and revealed the cylinders, short, fat, insulated with copper and ceramic, humming faintly like caged storms. The Veyari beside Lethar hissed, "What are those?" Ward didn't look away from the approaching titans. "Thunder eggs." Lethar's claws dug into the stone. "What do they do?" Ward finally grinned, teeth flashing white against his soot-blackened face. "They make machines wish they were never born." The first warform lowered its head. Its spine lance crackled, violet light spiraling down the coils. The air smelled of ozone and iron. "Now," Ward barked. Voss and her team sprinted forward, hauling the thunder eggs. They didn't move like disciplined soldiers. They moved like mad scavengers, zigzagging, rolling, sliding behind rubble, ignoring the firestorm raining down. 2 fell. 3 kept going. One soldier, a young man with a voice still high, ran right beneath the shadow of the giant. He slammed a thunder egg against the broken cobblestones, twisted its dial, and shoved it into a storm drain beneath the mech's foot. The egg pulsed. Blue shockwaves ripped out, a dome of crackling light that expanded through the street. The Dominion soldiers spasmed, weapons shorting, optics sparking. The warform staggered mid-step, its joints locking as its systems shrieked under the wave. Its lance sputtered out. "Climb it," Ward roared. The humans swarmed the crippled titan like wolves on a bull. They fired grapples, leapt from walls, clung to the armor with magnetized gloves. They tore open access panels with crowbars and cybernetic grips, shoving grenades and crude charges into the gaps. Explosions rippled along its body. The giant lurched, swung an arm, smashed one human flat against a wall, yet the others kept climbing. Voss herself crawled along its back, teeth bared, planting 3 charges along the coil. The warform gave one last mechanical roar before its spine split in fire. It toppled, slow and terrible, shaking the entire district as it crashed. The impact sent dust and debris flying for blocks. For one breath, there was silence. Then the humans howled. It was not the clean, triumphant cheer of council armies. It was primal savage, a sound ripped from their deathworld hearts. A sound that said, "We kill gods, too." The Vayari stared, stunned. One of them whispered, voice trembling, They brought down a giant." But the battle was not done. More warforms advanced, their lances humming back to life. Carrier tanks rolled over the fallen Titan. Dominion troops reorganized, adapting. Ward's radio crackled with laughter, mad, breathless laughter. Voss's voice. "One down, Cap, who's hungry for seconds?" Ward's smile was grim. "All of us." He turned to Lethar. "You see how it works. We break their toys, then use the pieces to break more toys." Lethar's throat tightened. "At what cost?" Ward didn't answer. He didn't need to. The street was already littered with broken bodies, human and Vayari alike. The next wave came. The humans repeated their tactic, but the Dominion adapted faster than any Council army would have. They widened their formations, fired pulses into the ground ahead to detonate hidden thunder eggs prematurely. Their warforms stomped on buildings before humans could climb them. Still, the Deathworlders adapted in turn. Where one trick failed, they invented another. One soldier hurled a thunder egg attached to a chain, swinging it like a morning star into a warform's knee. Another used climbing gear to scale a Titan's back, stabbing into it with a plasma torch until he was swallowed by the explosion. Lethar watched, half in awe, half in horror. This was no ordered battle. This was survival turned into war, desperation turned into fury. The Vayari began to join in, imitating the humans' wildness. They stopped firing from formation and instead darted in pairs, hitting weak spots and vanishing. They learned to climb, to strike from above, to improvise weapons from whatever lay at hand. For the first time, they fought not like prey, but like predators. 2 more warforms fell, carrier tanks burned, the Dominion's advance slowed. But the price was unbearable. Half the humans lay dead or crippled. The streets were choked with smoke and blood. Lethar found Ward at the front, firing his rifle with one hand, his cybernetic arm scorched to sparking ruin. "Captain," Lethar rasped, "you cannot win this. Even Deathworlders cannot fight forever." Ward spat blood and grinned. "We don't need forever, just long enough." "Long enough for what?" Before Ward could answer, the Dominion flagship above the city sent a transmission. It echoed across the skies, a cold mechanical voice amplified for all to hear. "Resistance is irrelevant. Dominion Command authorizes total extermination of Vayari Prime. No quarter, no survivors." Lethar's knees went weak. Total extermination. They would glass the world from orbit. Every city, every forest, every hatchery, every child. Ward heard it too. His grin faded, his jaw tightened. "They're not retreating," Ward muttered. "They're coming to wipe you clean." He looked at his surviving squad. Soot, blood, exhaustion, madness, but still standing. "Then we don't stop them here," Ward said. "We take the fight up there." Lethar froze, up there, into orbit, against their fleet. Ward's eyes gleamed with the same terrifying fire Lethar had first seen when the humans landed. "We steal one of their gods," Ward said, "and we make it ours." The words of the Dominion echoed across the city like a death sentence. Total extermination authorized, no survivors. For a moment, silence hung heavier than the smoke. Even the rain seemed to pause. Vayari soldiers lowered their rifles. Some simply collapsed to their knees, claws pressed to the ground, whispering prayers to moons that had never answered. Commander Lethar felt something inside him break. His people had fought, bled, and died beside these Deathworlders, and still it would not matter. The Dominion would scour Vayari Prime until nothing living remained. Then Elias Ward's gravel voice cut through the despair. "Listen to me," Ward said, climbing onto the shattered husk of a Dominion tank. Sparks still hissed from its carcass. His cybernetic arm trembled, half dead from damage, but his living hand pointed to the sky where black warships prowled like carrion birds. "They think they've won. They think this planet's ash already, but we're not done, not by a damn mile." The humans turned their scarred faces up to him. The Vayari did too, though with less certainty. Ward's eye blazed. "We don't fight them down here anymore. Down here we're ants under a boot, but up there," he jabbed his finger toward the sky. "Up there we steal the boot and kick them back." A murmur rippled through the survivors. Lethar's spines prickled. "You mean take one of their ships, Captain Ward? That's impossible." Ward's grin was grim. Impossible's just what we call work worth doing. Sergeant Voss barked a laugh, still spattered with ash. Hell yeah, let's steal a god. But the Vayari soldiers flinched. One spoke, trembling. Even if you could board such a ship, we are not strong enough. We cannot. Ward cut him off. You can, because you don't have a choice. None of us do. They're coming to burn your children in their beds. You gonna sit here and let them. The soldier's jaw tightened. He looked away, but he didn't argue again. Lethar, however, stepped forward. His voice was low, shaking, but steady. If we fail, my people die faster. If we succeed, we might still die, but with a chance. Ward locked eyes with him. For the first time, Lethar realized Ward wasn't just a soldier. He was something stranger. A man who had walked through too much fire to believe in surrender. You asked why we came, Ward said softly, so only Lethar could hear. This is why, because when the universe decides you don't matter, you've got two choices, lay down or spit in its eye. Lethar swallowed hard, then he nodded. Then we spit. Planning the impossible. The survivors gathered in a ruined hall, once a temple to the moons. The stained glass dome had shattered in the bombardment, leaving jagged teeth open to the burning sky. Fires cast strange shadows across the cracked mosaics. Ward spread a crude map on a slab of stone. It wasn't paper, but scavenged plating scratched with lines of chalk. This is their forward base, he said, pointing. Here, 3 carrier groups landed in the low valley east of the city. That's where they refuel, patch damage, and load troops. And right in the middle, he tapped a jagged triangle. A Dominion battleship on standby. The Vayari gasped. Even Lethar's stomach clenched. To them, a battleship was a floating continent of fire. Entire worlds had fallen beneath one. You want to walk into that? One officer whispered. Walk no, Ward said. Crawl, bleed, and lie through our teeth. He looked at his squad. We go in quiet. Sewers, tunnels, whatever's left. We slip inside, make enough noise to get to the ship. Once we're on board, we hijack her and turn her guns on their fleet. Can you even fly such a thing? Lethar asked, incredulous. Ward smirked. Flying, easy. It's not dying that's tricky. The humans chuckled grimly, as if this were a common truth. One of the Vayari officers shook her head. Even if you succeed, the Dominion will chase you. You'll never escape. Ward's face hardened. We're not trying to escape. We're trying to buy time. Time for your people to dig deeper, hide better. Time for my people to bring more steel. Lethar's spines bristled. More steel? You mean there are more of you? Ward only smiled and said nothing. The price of compassion. That night before they moved, Ward sat alone in the broken temple. His rifle lay across his knees. His cybernetic arm sparked occasionally, casting light across his scarred face. Lethar approached cautiously. Captain, may I sit? Ward nodded. They sat together under the ruined dome, staring at the fires burning across the city. I do not understand you, Lethar said at last. You are Deathworlders. Every story I have heard painted you as monsters. Yet today I saw you save a child before yourself. I saw your medic weep over my wounded. I saw you hold the line when logic said to run. Why? Ward rubbed a hand across his beard. His voice was quiet, rough with old pain. Because we've been where you are, forgotten, abandoned. We called for help once too. No one came, so we swore if anyone ever called again, we'd be the ones who answered. He looked at Lethar then, eyes burning. You don't need monsters. You need bastards stubborn enough to spit in the dark. That's us. Lethar's chest tightened. He thought of his people, of the countless hatchlings hiding in cellars, waiting for fire to fall. Perhaps monsters were exactly what they needed. A horn blew from the ruins outside. It was time. Into the dark. The strike team was small, 8 humans, 6 Vayari. Among them were Ward, Voss, Doc Reyes, and Lethar himself. They carried mismatched gear, some human rifles, some Vayari spears modified with scavenged charges. Packs rattled with thunder eggs and crude explosives. They moved through the sewers beneath the city, wading through ankle-deep water and ash. The tunnels stank of rot and fire. Rats fled at their passage. At one point, a section had collapsed. The humans dug through with bare hands, passing stones back and forth until the way opened. Ward bled from his palms but didn't stop. Finally, they reached the valley. The stench of Dominion fuel filled the air, sharp and bitter. Through cracks in the sewer grates, Lethar saw the giants of war resting on landing struts. Floodlights glared across the camp. Drones patrolled in strict squares. And at the center, the battleship. It loomed like a mountain of black metal, spines jutting, engines glowing faint blue. Its shadow swallowed the entire camp. The Vayari with them trembled. Lethar himself felt like an insect staring at the boot about to crush him. Ward only smiled. Ugly thing, isn't it? Let's go steal it. A price paid in blood. They slipped into the camp under cover of darkness. Humans moved like ghosts, breaking patrols with knives and garrots, hiding bodies in shadow. Vayari followed, copying their savage efficiency. Doc Reyes carried her pack heavy with charges, muttering prayers under her breath. Voss grinned like a wolf. They reached the ship's lower hatches. Dominion guards stood in gleaming armor, rifles ready. Ward raised his hand, silent. The team struck. Vayari spears stabbed, human blades cut throats, muffled gunfire spat. The guards fell. They piled into the hatchway. For a moment, victory seemed possible. Then alarms blared. Crimson lights bathed the valley, sirens howled. Dominion voices screamed across speakers. They know, Lethar hissed. Ward snarled, then we run louder. The team charged into the battleship, alarms shrieking around them. Dominion soldiers flooded the halls. Fire ripped through the corridors. Humans fought like demons, smashing, burning, cutting. Vayari fought like shadows beside them. Blood slicked the walls. One by one, they pushed forward. And then Reyes fell. A blast tore through the corridor. She shoved a Vayari soldier aside and took it full in the chest. She hit the floor, coughing blood. Ward dragged her up, screaming her name, but her eyes were already fatting. Keep going, she whispered, blood on her lips. Steal their god. Her hand slipped from his. Ward's roar shook the corridor. You sons of bitches, he charged, firing until his rifle clicked empty, then beating a Dominion soldier to the ground with the stock. The others surged after him, grief-fueling rage. Lethar's heart hammered. He realized with cold certainty that the humans would give everything, every drop of blood, every piece of themselves, for a people not even their own. And for the first time in his life, Lethar believed in impossible things. The battleship was alive with alarms. Red light pulsed through the corridors, bathing everything in the color of blood. Klaxons shrieked like wounded beasts. The Dominion's alien tongue echoed from wall speakers, a mechanical chorus of commands that even the Vayari could not fully understand. But the humans didn't need to. They understood war. Ward charged forward at the head of the strike team, face streaked with ash and blood, cybernetic arms sparking from damage. Behind him came Sergeant Voss, grinning through split lips, hefting her rifle like a hammer. Lethar and the surviving Vayari followed, breathless, clutching their weapons tight. Every corridor was a gauntlet. Dominion soldiers poured in from side hatches, their armor gleaming in the crimson glow, rifles hissing with plasma fire. The humans answered with ugly brutality. They didn't fire in disciplined lines. They fired wild, they smashed, they improvised. One human ripped a Dominion rifle from an enemy's hands and beat him down with it. Another threw a thunder egg into a choke point, detonating a wave of EMP that sent armored soldiers twitching to the floor. The Vayari tried to fight with the same wildness. It wasn't in their nature, but desperation made fast learners. One darted under a Dominion soldier's guard, stabbing her spear through the joint of his armor. Another hurled a stolen grenade so hard it cracked the ceiling, burying enemies in rubble. Still, the cost was steep. A Vayari officer went down with half her chest burned away. A human fell screaming as a Dominion blade slid through his side. The team was dwindling. Ward's voice cut through the chaos. Forward, we take the bridge or none of this matters. The heart of the beast. They reached the central lift shaft. A massive tube of steel and glass ran the height of the battleship. Transparent walls showed glimpses of the ship's innards. Glowing reactor conduits, hangar bays filled with fighters, storage holds crawling with drones. At the very top lay the bridge. Ward glanced upward. Too far to climb, too guarded to ride. Voss spat blood from her mouth and grinned. So we go through. Through what? Lethar asked, claws trembling. Ward pointed to a side hatch labeled in Dominion glyphs. Maintenance access runs alongside the lift. They forced it open. The passage was a nightmare, narrow, filled with pipes and humming conduits. Heat and sparks lashed their skin as they crawled. Ward's cybernetic arm sizzled against a live wire, the stink of burned metal filling the air. He didn't even flinch. Halfway up, Dominion drones detected them. Spherical machines rolled along the pipes, unfolding blades and crackling stun rods. Behind us, Lethar shouted. The humans didn't hesitate. One jammed a thunder egg against the wall, twisted the dial, and shoved it toward the drones. The explosion ripped through the crawlspace, frying circuits and shattering conduits. Heat seared their backs, but the drones were gone. At last, gasping, they reached another hatch. Voss kicked it open with a scream. They tumbled out into the bridge antechamber. The battle for the bridge. The Dominion officers inside were waiting. A dozen of them stood around the central chamber, clad in heavier armor than their foot soldiers. Their helmets were marked with jagged insignia. One stepped forward, voice like metal on stone. "You dare defile a Dominion vessel? You will die here forgotten." Ward spat blood at the officer's feet. Forgotten, not likely. The fight exploded. Plasma bolts tore across the chamber. Humans and Veari returned fire. Smoke filled the air, acrid and choking. Ward fought like a man possessed. He smashed through Dominion officers with his rifle, then drew a blade from his belt, a jagged thing, blackened and chipped. He drove it into the gaps of alien armor, tearing through with sheer brute strength. Voss was everywhere at once, laughing through the blood, leaping onto consoles, firing down into clustered soldiers. She moved like chaos given flesh. Lethar found himself dueling a Dominion officer nearly twice his size. He blocked with his spear, sparks flying, then slashed low, cutting through a joint. The officer fell and Lethar drove the spear into his chest. He had never killed like this before. His heart raced with terror and something else. Purpose. One by one, the Dominion fell. The bridge antechamber was painted in blood and smoke. And then they reached the doors. Huge slabs of black metal sealed tight. Beyond lay the command bridge, the heart of the beast. Ward slammed his bloody hand against the console. "Voss." "I'm on it." She dropped to one knee, pulled out a jury-rigged hacking device cobbled from scavenged Dominion tech and human stubbornness. Sparks leapt as she forced cables into ports not meant for them. The doors groaned. Then they opened. The bridge of a Dominion battleship, was a cathedral of war. Massive windows stretched out into the void, showing the black gulf of space and the faint curve of Veari Prime below. Consoles glowed with alien glyphs. Hollow displays showed Dominion fleets maneuvering in orbit. At the center of it all sat the ship's commander, a tall alien in flowing armor, helm shaped like a predator's skull. He rose slowly as the intruders burst in. His voice carried the weight of authority. "You cannot hold this place. You are insects scratching at stone." Ward raised his rifle. "Then let's see how much stone we can scratch." The bridge erupted. The commander fought with a crackling blade, faster than anything Lethar had ever seen. He cut down 2 Veari in seconds. Plasma fire burned across consoles, shattering displays. Ward met him head-on. Their weapons clashed, sparks flying. Ward's cybernetic arm locked the commander's blade even as it groaned under the strain. With his free hand, Ward drove his jagged knife into the alien's side. The commander staggered. Ward kicked him down. The surviving humans and Veari stormed the consoles. They didn't understand Dominion controls, but humans didn't need to. They smashed panels open, exposed circuits, and jammed wires together until sparks flew. Screens flickered. Systems stuttered. Voss whooped as a display shifted into rough translation. "Got it! I can steer this bastard." Ward, panting, bloodied, turned to the survivors. "We've got her. The ship's ours." The impossible had happened. They had stolen a god. The alarm. But victory was never simple. Lethar's ears twitched. Through the windows, he saw the Dominion fleet shifting. Carriers and destroyers angled their guns toward the battleship. Hundreds of fighters swarmed. "They know," he whispered. "They'll burn us out of the sky." Ward looked at him, then at the fleet beyond. His lips curled into that feral grin again. "Then we give them hell before we go." He turned to Voss. "Get the guns online." Voss's fingers flew across the jury-rigged controls. The ship's cannons hummed, charging with alien energy. The humans and Veari stared out the windows as the first shots lit the void. Lances of plasma that tore through Dominion carriers like paper. Explosions painting fire across the black. For the first time in history, a Dominion fleet recoiled. Lethar's chest swelled with something he had not felt since the war began. Hope. But then the alarm screamed louder. The stolen battleship shook as enemy fire slammed into its shields. Systems sparked. Hull plating buckled. Ward grabbed the comms. His voice was steady, hard as iron. "All hands brace, we're not going down quiet." The stolen battleship shuddered under fire. Every screen on the bridge screamed warnings in Dominion glyphs. Consoles spat sparks. Pipes burst along the ceiling, venting hissing steam that burned skin raw. The floor trembled as plasma bolts struck the shields again and again. Through the vast windows, Lethar saw the impossible, an entire Dominion fleet closing in on them. Carriers bristling with fighters, frigates flanking like hunting dogs, destroyers forming a noose. The fleet dwarfed the single battleship they had stolen. It should have been suicide. But Elias Ward stood tall at the center of the bridge, his voice calm and sharp as a blade. "They think this ship belongs to them. Let's prove them wrong." Pushing the limits, Voss hunched over the alien helm controls, fingers flying across translated glyphs, sweat streaking her soot-covered face. "Guns are hot, Cap. Shields are limping. Engines are whining like my old dog with a nail in its paw, but she'll run if we kick her hard enough." Ward grinned, "Then kick her till she screams." The ship's massive cannons rotated, groaning under stress. They fired in staggered pulses, great lances of energy that tore through the void. One struck a Dominion frigate broadside, splitting it open like rotten fruit. Another hit a carrier's hangar bay, igniting fighters mid-launch in a storm of fire. The humans cheered, savage and wild. Even the Viari let out fierce cries, their spines bristling with newfound courage. But the Dominion retaliated. The battleship lurched as enemy volleys struck. Consoles exploded. A Viari officer was thrown across the room, his body limp when it hit the wall. Smoke filled the bridge. "They're focusing us," Lethar shouted. "We can't hold against all of them." Ward's eye burned like molten steel. "Then we stop holding, we hit back harder." Deathworld tricks. The ship groaned as Ward ordered power rerouted. Humans tore open panels with their bare hands, ripping out Dominion conduits and twisting wires together in sparks. "Engines won't like this," Voss warned. "They don't have to like it," Ward growled. "They just have to work." He slammed a fist on the console. "Overload the reactors, dump it into the guns." The bridge crew froze. Lethar's claws dug into the railing. "Overload, that will destroy us." Ward's grin was feral. "Not if we kill them first." The humans worked like maniacs. They chained the ship's heart into its weapons, venting raw power into cannons never designed to handle it. Warning glyphs flared across every screen. The Dominion ship screamed in protest. "Fire!" Ward roared. The cannons unleashed a storm. Not lances this time, suns. Blinding streams of raw plasma tore through the void, wide and wild, cutting across 3 destroyers at once. They exploded in staggered fireballs, shockwaves rippling through the formation. Fighters burned like sparks in a forge. The Dominion fleet faltered. "By the moons," Lethar whispered, staring at the destruction. "You've turned their god into a monster." Ward spat blood from a split lip. "No, we just reminded them monsters fight harder." Boarding action. But victory never came cheap. Fighters swarmed the battleship, peppering its hull with fire. Boarding pods launched, drilling into the ship's sides. The thud of impact echoed through the hull like drums of war. "Boarders," Voss shouted. Ward's eyes blazed. "Then we welcome them." He grabbed a battered rifle and slammed a fresh magazine in. "Lethar, you're with me. The rest of you hold this bridge or die on it. Don't let anyone take it back." They left Voss at the helm, her laughter echoing as she wrestled with the alien controls. "Don't scratch my ship, boss." Ward led Lethar and 2 humans into the corridors. Smoke and sparks filled the halls. The deck tilted under more impacts. The first boarding pod split open, spilling Dominion soldiers into the corridor. They advanced in perfect formation, rifles blazing. Ward charged them head-on. He didn't duck. He didn't hide. He fired with brutal precision, dropping 3 in seconds, then smashed into the rest like a storm. His cybernetic arm punched through armor, ripping metal and flesh. His knife gutted another. Lethar followed, spearing a soldier through the throat. Blood sprayed his claws, hot and alien. He wanted to retch, but Ward's roar drove him forward. Together they cleared the pod. leaving only corpses and smoke. Next, Ward barked, already sprinting down the hall. They fought pod after pod. The ship became a slaughterhouse. Humans fought like creatures born in chaos, bashing with rifles, hurling grenades, dragging Dominion soldiers into melee where savagery triumphed over discipline. Lethar copied them, clawing, stabbing, fighting like prey that had become predator. For the first time, he understood what it meant to be Deathworlder. Breaking point. Back on the bridge, Voss screamed into the comms. Cap, shields are down to 10%. We're bleeding air from 3 decks. I can't hold them. Ward's voice came back, ragged but defiant. Hold long enough for me to make a hole. He kicked another Dominion soldier off his blade and spat blood onto the floor. His armor was scorched, his cybernetic arm barely working, but his grin never faltered. Lethar panted beside him. We cannot win, even with this ship we cannot. Ward grabbed him by the shoulders, shaking him hard enough to rattle his spines. Listen to me. It doesn't matter if we win. It matters that we fight so loud the galaxy hears us. It matters that the Dominion learns there's someone out here crazy enough to spit in their eye. Lethar's chest heaved. He saw it now. This wasn't just about Veari Prime. It was about everyone the Dominion thought weak and forgotten. Then we make them hear, Lethar said, voice steady. Ward grinned. Now you're thinking human. One last trick. They fought their way back to the bridge. Voss was pale, blood dripping from a cut across her forehead, but she hadn't left the helm. Engines are screaming, boss. We can give her one last ride before she blows. Ward looked at the windows. The Dominion flagship loomed in the distance, massive, bristling with weapons. Its cannons glowed as they prepared to fire the killing volley. Ward's voice was quiet now, almost gentle. Then we ride her into hell. He turned to the survivors. Brace yourselves. Voss slammed the controls forward. The battleship's engines flared brighter than the sun. The whole ship shook as it leapt forward, tearing through fighter swarms, ignoring the burning wounds across its hull. Dominion ships tried to block the path. The humans plowed through them, ramming frigates aside, cannon fire ripping destroyers apart. The ship screamed, plates tearing free, fires eating its insides. The flagship filled the windows. Ward stood tall, shoulders squared, his cybernetic arms sparking like a dying star. For Veari Prime, for everyone they forgot. The battleship hurled itself at the enemy Titan. The impact. The collision was apocalyptic. The stolen battleship slammed into the Dominion flagship with all the fury of a Deathworld behind it. Explosions cascaded across both hulls, tearing metal apart like paper. Shockwaves rippled through the void, visible even from the burning cities below. The bridge windows shattered, fire roared inside, consoles burst into fragments. Lethar was thrown to the floor, ears ringing, vision swimming. The last thing he saw before the world went dark was Ward, still standing, still defiant, still roaring into the fire. Silence. For a long moment after the collision, there was nothing but silence. The bridge of the stolen battleship was a tomb. Fire smoldered in shattered consoles. Sparks rained from torn wires. Ash floated in the air like snowfall. The void beyond the broken windows glowed with wreckage. Dominion fighters spinning aimless, chunks of hull burning as they fell into atmosphere. Lethar stirred among the debris, his body screaming with pain. His spines were broken in places, blood soaked his chest, but he was alive. He forced his eyes open. The battleship had rammed straight into the Dominion flagship. Both ships were ruined, torn into each other like beasts in a death grip. Plasma still boiled along their broken spines. The shockwave had staggered the entire fleet. And amid the ruin, Captain Elias Ward still stood. He was on one knee, armor scorched black, cybernetic arm hanging by sparking wires. His face was drenched in blood, one eye swollen shut. Yet he pushed himself upright with the stubbornness of a mountain. His breath came in ragged gasps. Lethar tried to speak, but his voice cracked. Captain. Ward turned, grinning through blood. Still here, Commander, still spitting. Outside the broken windows, the Dominion fleet regrouped. The flagship burned, but the swarm remained. Carriers and destroyers shifted into formation, preparing the final strike. Even wounded, the Dominion was overwhelming. Ward spat red onto the floor. Guess this is where we cash out. Lethar's heart clenched. He had expected death since the war began, but not like this, not beside monsters who had turned out to be saviors. The Dominion fleet charged weapons, the void lit with the glow of annihilation. And then the stars changed. The arrival. Shadows fell across the Dominion ships. Dozens, no, hundreds, of new signatures dropped from hyperspace. Ships unlike any Lethar had ever seen. They weren't graceful cruisers like the Federation. They weren't ornate temples like the Kasari priests used. They weren't even clean or symmetrical. They were ugly, brutal, scarred. Human ships. They arrived like a storm, destroyers with hulls of jagged plating, carriers patched with dozens of colors, scars of old wars, gunboats bristling with crude but massive cannons. And leading them all, a ship so vast it dwarfed the Dominion's flagship. The Iron Resolve, its prow painted with the snarling jaws of some long-dead Earth beast. The comm crackled, filled with a voice like thunder. "Tempest Dawn, this is Admiral Keegan. We picked up your signal. Stand by. We'll handle it from here." Ward let out a hoarse laugh, almost a sob. "Took you long enough." The Dominion fleet faltered. For the first time in living memory, they faced not fractured resistance, but an enemy that met them head-on with equal fury. And humanity's armada fell upon them. Deathworld fury unleashed. The void became fire. Human destroyers dove straight through Dominion formations, ignoring return fire, ramming and detonating at point blank. Carriers spewed swarms of jury-rigged fighters, each painted with crude insignias and teeth, flying with reckless abandon. Gunboats fired salvos that tore holes through enemy shields. Dreadnoughts overloaded their own reactors to push weapons beyond design, just as Ward had done. Entire Dominion cruisers vanished in blossoms of plasma. And then came the boarding pods, hundreds of them. Ugly cylinders launched from human ships, slamming into Dominion hulls. They didn't wait to cut clean entry, they blasted jagged holes and poured humans into the breaches like floodwaters. Ward and Lethar watched it unfold from their ruined bridge. "They're insane," Lethar whispered. "No species would fight like this, not this recklessly." Ward grinned through blood. "That's the trick, Commander. On a Deathworld, playing safe gets you killed. We learned a long time ago, better to scare death than wait for it." The Dominion broke. One by one, their ships fell back, some burning, some limping, some scattering into hyperspace. For the first time, a Dominion fleet retreated, not because they were ordered to regroup, but because they feared. The galaxy had never seen such a thing. The ground below. On Vayari Prime, survivors staggered from bunkers and cellars to watch the sky. They had braced for fire to fall, for annihilation to wash over them. Instead, they saw streaks of light, Dominion ships fleeing, chased by burning wreckage. And above it all, the crude, ugly silhouettes of humanity's ships, scarred but triumphant. The Vayari wept. Families clung together, not in despair, but in joy. Soldiers dropped to their knees, overcome by the impossible. Hatchlings pointed to the sky, chittering in awe. Their death sentence had become salvation. The aftermath. Hours later, in the shattered bridge of the stolen battleship, humanity's fleet established comms. Admiral Keegan's face appeared on a cracked hollow screen, weathered, grim, eyes sharp. He took in the wreckage, the survivors, and finally Ward. "Captain," Keegan said, voice like gravel, "you look like hell." Ward coughed a laugh, blood spraying his lip. "You should see the other guy." Keegan's stern expression softened for a heartbeat. "You held the line. You answered a call the galaxy ignored. You did good." Ward shrugged, nearly collapsing with emotion. "We just did what we swore. Nobody left behind." Lethar stepped forward, still shaking, his chest bound in makeshift bandages. He bowed deeply, voice raw. "On behalf of my people, humanity has our eternal gratitude. You saved us when no one else would." Keegan studied him for a long moment. "We didn't come for gratitude. We came because no one else would. That's what we are. That's what we do." Deathworlders revealed. In the days that followed, the Vayari helped recover human survivors from the wreckage. Together, they buried the fallen, Vayari and human alike, side by side. For every grave, Ward insisted on a marker, even when there was no body to lay. "No one forgotten," he said. The Vayari began to learn the truth about the so-called Deathworlders, that they were savage because they had to be, that they were reckless because caution killed on Earth, that they were terrifying not because they lacked compassion, but because their compassion burned hot enough to fight the universe itself. Lethar stood with Ward one night among the ruins. looking up at the stars now free of Dominion ships. "My people called you monsters," Lethar said softly. "We believed you too dangerous to ever trust." Ward lit a battered cigarette, the ember glowing in the dark. His one good eye gleamed. "We are dangerous, but not to those who ask for help." He took a drag, exhaled smoke. "Dangerous is exactly what you want when the monsters come knocking." Lethar turned to him, spines lifted in respect. "Then let the galaxy know this truth. When the Forgotten cry out, it is the Deathworlders who answer." Ward chuckled, wincing at the pain. "Damn right." Epilogue: The galaxy remembers. News spread fast. Word of Veari Prime's salvation leapt across the stars, carried by smugglers, traders, even Dominion deserters. Everywhere the story was the same. The Veari begged the galaxy for help. None came. The Dominion came to exterminate. None stood in the way. And then humanity came. The Deathworlders, the monsters. And the monsters fought like demons, bled like martyrs, and saved a world no one else cared to save. In council chambers, the old powers whispered nervously. If humans could break a Dominion fleet, what else could they do? In temples, priests rewrote sermons. Perhaps the Deathworlders were not cursed, but chosen. In backrooms and shadows, oppressed peoples whispered a new hope. When we call, maybe the Deathworlders will come for us too. On Veari Prime, hatchlings painted crude images of human soldiers on the walls. Scarred faces, wild eyes, broken armor, and fierce protectors. And in the void, aboard their battered ships, humanity prepared for the next call, because they knew there would be one. There always was. Ward sat in the infirmary of the Iron Resolve, bandaged, half-broken, but alive. He stared out the viewport at Veari Prime, its fires slowly dimming, its people rebuilding from ashes. Sergeant Voss limped in, one arm in a sling, grinning crookedly. "So, boss, we answered one call. How many more you figure before the galaxy realizes we're not going away?" Ward's grin was tired, bloody, and unbreakable. "As many as it takes." And somewhere deep in the stars, another desperate beacon pulsed, waiting.